Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bill Whittle Now. I'm Bill Whittle, and our friend Scott Ott is unfortunately not here. He had a family tragedy, and I'm sure he would appreciate your thoughts and prayers if you're so inclined. He certainly has mine. He'll be back on Thursday morning. So, in order to preserve the format of the show, I'm going to take a look at the Drudge Report for the first time today, and whatever the top story on the Drudge Report is, that's what we'll talk about. So, here we go. Okay, so the top story is that Manafort held secret talks with Assange and CNN met with Ecuador president. Wiki denies. You know what? I don't really know what I can do with that story. I don't know any of the details, so let's see what's next. So below that it says Mueller plea drama claims Manafort breach. I guess it's breach of promise or for immunity or whatever, and then not getting what they want. And, of course, he says he won't sign a lie. Okay, well, that's actually pretty clear, isn't it? It's common to say that there's two tiers of justice in the country, and progressives especially like to make this case. They like to say that there's two different brands of American justice. There's American justice for rich white people, and then there's the American justice for everybody else. That certainly had some truth in the past. I suppose it has some truth today, but my goodness, it made so much progress in erasing that. But we still have two tiers of justice on the extreme political level, and those two tiers are Republican justice and Democratic justice. If you're a Democrat, you can store top secret documents on a server in a bathroom and have them show up on a laptop of a known sex offender, 60,000 of them, classified emails. You know, there's been so much about the Hillary Clinton thing. I'm setting the Hillary Clinton thing up not to say that, oh, well, Hillary Clinton did it too, just to give you some idea of the scale of what happened there compared to the scale of what's happening here. I don't have the actual regulations in front of me, but I remember them very clearly. There are federal laws that state that, number one, if you do not return all official documents to the government upon your exit from a government job, that is a felony. There's no question that Hillary Clinton did not return all of them. James Comey admitted as much, and so on, and as well as 100 other indictments. And then a subsection of that, the next section of the law says, furthermore, if you've made any attempt to deny, alter, erase any of those records, that is a second felony offense, punishable by whatever it was, 1 to 3 years in prison, and further disqualification from government job in the United States government for the rest of your life. So just to set the record straight, there are two clear, undisputed, absolutely undisputed felony charges against Hillary Clinton that were not prosecuted. And they weren't prosecuted because there's a standard for justice for Democrats in this country. And that standard for justice basically comes down to, if a Democrat did it, then we won't report on it. And if somebody else reports on it, we'll cover it up. By not reporting on it, we're going to make the people that do report on it look like they're lunatics. This is the Fox News effect, right? Fox will cover stories that other liberal news agencies won't touch. And since no one sees it anywhere else, they go, oh, that's just Fox News inventing the news. No, that's just Fox News reporting the news. But that's how it's designed to work. So here's what I wanted to say about the Mueller, the whole Mueller probe. It's been 2 years now. And with Hillary Clinton's evidence, just as a case example of that same kind of extremely high level sort of malfeasance, a conviction could have been gotten on Hillary Clinton within a month. But, I mean, there's just no question about it. Once they checked the emails and found out that there were emails that had not been turned in, she's guilty of a felony. Once they found out that she tried to use, this bleach, this hardcore data eraser on her computers, that's a second felony. Done. Over. Send her to court and sentence the woman. So what is it about this thing with Trump and Russia and Manafort and Corsi and all the rest? Why is this going on, and why is it taken 2 years and more to continue? And to me, that's telling me there's pretty strong evidence that there's not much there, if anything, because if they had anything as conclusive as the failed to return emails, then Donald Trump would have been indicted for this crime 4 months into his administration, because that's the Republican standard for justice. So this is what we're dealing with. And not only is this bad for Republicans and conservatives, needless to say, we all share the same frustration of seeing the FBI director do a 40-minute testimony in basically listing every single one of the felony crimes that Hillary Clinton had committed. By the way, I know some FBI field agents, and they were cheering while he was reading these things, saying finally he's going to get her. And then he says, well, we don't think that any reasonable prosecutor would take the case. And these field agents, who are patriots, looked at each other like, what country are we in now? But my point is simple, really. If this Mueller probe had anything of any kind of traction at all, I cannot understand why it would take over 2 years to deliver it. And the fact that the entire process was started fraudulently, in other words, they went to the judge for the warrant to tap the information, and they said Trump is colluding with the Russians. The judge said, "What evidence is there of that?" And then they said, "Well, it's been reported in the media." And the judge said, "Okay, who made the reports in the media?" To which the Democrats said, "Well, we did. We charged him with something. They reported it in the media. Since it's been in the media, therefore, we need a warrant to prove that this is true." And that's democratic justice. And that's how that works. It's democratic justice to say, and somebody's going to have to explain this to me, that any circuit court judge can stop the actions of the President of the United States, especially when he is in the process of defending the border. I don't know much about the legal niceties of this, but to be honest with you, I think we're past legal niceties. I think when we're dealing with these two different standards of justice, if a Ninth Circuit Court judge says, no, you're not allowed to defend the borders, Mr. President, we're going to block your attempt to block this invasion convoy, then I think Donald Trump needs to simply exercise his war powers as commander-in-chief. This is what the whole progressive strategy for Donald Trump is they will not allow him a reasonable solution. So since they will not allow him a reasonable solution, he is forced into an extreme solution, at which point they then say, look at this guy, what a heartless, mean extremist he is. And you can best encapsulate this entire dynamic by something I've been saying for a while now, and that is we need a wall because the progressives would not let us have a border. We don't want a wall. We never wanted a wall. We never wanted a wall. We need one now, but we never wanted one. We still don't want one. What we wanted was a border, and a border is an invisible line that is protected and which is basically inviolate. So the progressives wouldn't give us a border, so now we have to have a wall. The progressives wouldn't give Donald Trump a reasonable option on the caravan, so now we have to tear gas people, and on 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 it goes. But what this looks like to me, just from the headlines, I haven't read the stories because this is the kind of the fun of the show, is just to get a first take on things from a moral perspective. But let's just assume that these three headlines here are more or less correct. If they're basically saying Manafort flipped and then has flipped back, and Corsi won't sign a lie, apparently meaning he's not going to agree to Mueller's statement that is not true, then again, having just glanced at these articles, sounds to me like the whole thing's falling apart. And if it turns out that this whole thing does fall apart, then I think Donald Trump has an obligation to the American people to assign a special prosecutor to the Mueller investigation and find out how that investigation got started, because by what I've read about it, it's a pretty shady operation from the beginning. You can only imagine who might be connected with this, by the way. And also, if I were Donald Trump, I'd also have an investigation launched into an investigation, not an indictment, a simple FBI investigation into Dr. Blasey Ford, because her testimony was so weak that I would want to know if there's any evidence that it was induced by somebody. If it was induced by somebody and she was either convinced or argued into, through whatever means, to commit perjury in order to block a Supreme Court nominee, then I think that person needs to pay for it. If, on the other hand, they find out there's no evidence of this, then she's just made a mistake. But I'm leaning towards the former on that. So two standards of justice, Republican and Democrat, not too hard to figure out, really. We see it every single day. And because the media is so exclusively left-wing, whenever anybody reports an alternative opinion, like Fox News or Drudge or Daily Wire or whatever, what the what the ignorance of the story on the part of the mainstream media means is it kind of puts a cyst around the story. It allows the progressives to say that Drudge, Fox. We've got footage, we've got evidence. It's on Fox, can't be true. And this is how it works. So thank God for the few outlets that we have left in order to bring us at least a half of the story so that you can at least make up your own minds. That's all I've ever wanted, frankly. All I've ever wanted was a fair media, because with a fair media, we win. I don't want a conservative media. We'll be as guilty of the same kind of crimes as the Democrats are if we had that kind of mask of invisibility, that cloak of invisibility over us. I just want a fair media. If there was a fair media, the entire map would be red. They're providing 25 points of headwind, electoral points, by their ability to sift the news and provide one standard of justice to one party and one standard of justice to another. Anyway, that's my first take on what just appeared on the Drudge Report. That'll do it for this episode of Bill Whittle Now, made possible by a very small number of extremely dedicated and loyal people who've put up with God knows how many indignities and aggregations from me over the years, but nevertheless are committed to bringing you messages like this on a daily basis now, a 5-day-a-week basis anyway. So if you'd like to become part of that team, if you've been enjoying these shows and if they give you some kind of sense of comfort or orientation or something like that, just remind you that you're not alone and that you're not insane, then we'd love to have you as a member over at billwhittle.com. And again, my personal thoughts and prayers go out to Scott Ott, and I know he'd appreciate hearing any of those in the comment section from you good people out there as well. That'll do it for this edition of Bill Whittle Now. We will see you tomorrow morning right here, same bat time, same bat station.